Hello, everybody. This is John Murray, the Narrow Way Ministry and pastor of the Narrow Way Baptist Church in Montcalm. So I posted a post for you guys that are new on my friends list on my personal profile page, and told y'all that since you were new, that I would do a video and kind of explain myself to y'all and how I got where I'm at and from where I was. None of these things are easy to talk about for me. It's personal stuff, that you kind of don't want to air. Normally, you don't. And a lot of it should resonate with a lot of people. And, especially those of you that I've worked with in the past. And so I'll start with what led me up to where I was. So my relationship was suffering. Not because of anything extracurricular. It was my mentality, my attitude. I would get so mad sometimes that I thought something was really wrong with me. And I even thought, maybe, it sounds crazy, but we all know it's biblical. I was like, maybe I'm possessed or something, and I say that not in a joking way, but in a serious manner, because I would get uncontrollably mad for no reason. You could barely even have a conversation with me. And so that was causing problems, and I couldn't understand why. Finally, I'd had enough, and I went to the doctor. And those of you that know me or from, law enforcement, and those of you that will watch from law enforcement, this may be redundant to some of y'all. So you don't have to watch. This is for the ones, unless you want to, this is for the ones that haven't got to hear this, that might need to. But so I went to the doctor, got diagnosed with, just the typical stuff that you would expect a cop to have. And it was so bad that they started me out on 25 milligrams of Zoloft. That lasted for 2 weeks. When I went back after 2 weeks, they immediately jumped my dosage up to 200 milligrams. And then on top of that, 900 milligrams of Vistaril or hydroxyzine, whatever. And though now I don't take all those, and I'll explain why I don't take it as much. I still have to take it. I've tried not to, and it doesn't work. Just quite yet. So that's where I was. And when I got to talking to the doctor, I had realized that I had been through more trauma before I was even 13 than most people in their life, such as very brief. There was a situation outside of my house. I forget how old I was, 8 maybe, where I was unlucky enough to watch the police have to shoot and kill a man right there, so I saw that, and I remember how his body reacted. It's that graphic. But then a little while later, watched another man, probably a month, 2 months, maybe a little longer, but anyway, I watched the man get hit by a pounding mill truck, gravel truck, and killed. Again, same age. young, and I remember the trauma and the just the stuff that came from inside the cab. But I don't want to go too much into, because I mean, you can pretty much guess if you know what a pounding mill gravel truck is. So so I saw that at a young age, and there's more, but I don't have to go into like all of it. So anyway, fast forward. So I started my law enforcement career after the military. I got married when I was 19 to a girl I dated in high school. And it worked out as much as you would expect it to work out. 19 years old in Germany. I was a complete turd, unfaithful, and just so y'all know, going forward, I'm 100% honest, and like, I'm putting this business out there for a reason. I want to accept responsibility for my actions, good or bad. So I was a complete turd to her. She was taken into a foreign country, and pretty much left alone on the weekend nights. I was out running around, being everything to everybody except a husband, to her. And one of these days, I hope that I have a chance to apologize, to her. I know, not for any other reason than just to apologize for being the turd that I was. That didn't stop. I got out of the military in 2006. Got hired at Tazewell PD in Virginia. Continued being a garbage human being. And then I started dating my son's mom. We got married. I continued being the garbage person that I was, unfaithful, not home where I should have been, drinking all the time, and horrible husband. I've always been a decent dad, but I've never, now that's something I've changed, now, but anyway, so continue being a turd. I used to think it made me a man to talk to as many girls, as I could. That's deranged, I know, but I was young, and it's no excuse. I was living in sin is what it boils down to. Completely absent from everything I was taught about the way a Christian should conduct themselves, or a man should conduct himself. And I was so far removed from that, it wasn't even a second thought to me anymore. So we'll fast forward through that. Went through that divorce. I caused, 100%. I own it. It's my responsibility, not hers. And I put things, and I tore that family apart just like I did before. And I never knew, not that it's an excuse, but I never knew that I had that much trauma that was causing that much issue, the anger. And it's not an excuse. I'm not trying to, I'm on here telling you everything, so why would I make an excuse now, But, so we'll fast forward past that part, and we'll get into some more. So, started drinking a little more. It was always beer. Like, I would never touch liquor because of how it would make me act. And I got to where I was drinking, like, I don't know, 20, 25 beers. And I remember it didn't get me really the drunk that I wanted to be. All it did was bloat me. So I started, and that I didn't realize it at the time, but that was progression. I started into bourbon. It started out as just like a experimentation thing, and really I was using that as a like I was introduced to it by a gentleman, but and I used the excuse of like collecting these bourbons, these, just to have like these rare ones, and and that was just an excuse for wanting to drink it, right? So I ended up fast forward a little bit because you don't want to be here all night, and so I started drinking once a week, half a bottle, and then it was once a week, a whole bottle, or twice a week, a whole bottle, and then it progressed eventually to where it was 4 bottles a week, and I would drink them in about an hour and a half. So you can imagine straight bourbon, and I had progressed beyond mixing it. I had even progressed beyond icing it down, like I was just drinking almost straight from the bottle. And when you're involved in stuff like that, and you are slowly progressing to the point of no return, you don't really see how bad that you are, and you're blind to it, I guess, until it's too late. And mind you, my wife, now we've been together for 15 years, 14 years, something. Um, you know, it was starting to cause a strain, and I was lying to her about how much I drank. So we can move. So obviously, you see the progression and the issue with alcohol. Now, a lot of cops take alcohol, and by cops, I mean for those of you that watch that I worked with at the prison. I say a special prayer for you guys. Y'all know how I felt about it. I just couldn't do it. And if you're not an employee in a prison, we need to say a special prayer for these guys. That's hard work, and it's very negative work, and they really need the prayer and to be uplifted for the job they do that nobody knows about, because they do their job well, right? They keep them within the wire. So, unfortunately, the only time you hear about it's when something bad, and that's like law enforcement too. But anyway, so, without going into great detail about my stuff in law enforcement, obviously, if you're a cop, then you know the trauma that you're subjected to every day, day in and day out. Negativity. You're never solving anything. You might for a little while, but you're just caught in this loop of negativity. Everything you do and see is bad. You hardly ever get to see anything good, and it wears on you after a while. So then you start drinking more, and then that creates problems. It's like this nasty circle. Then it moves beyond just alcohol, and even when the alcohol fails to numb your feeling, your emotion, and your depression, that's a dangerous time. And I say that because there was a night that it started. I looked over and I'm drinking it. Again, full disclosure, I'm not hiding nothing. I looked over and I noticed my duty weapon laying there. And that was an immediate thought. But it went away. And then I remember the next time it happened. So I'm not going to go in each step, but suffice to say that every time that I looked over and saw it, it had progressed in thinking a little bit further about actually doing it. And as far as I ever made it was, you look over at it and I got up out of my chair, actually walked over there and picked it up. And the only thing that stopped me was my kids. And that's the extent to which, now, a lot of people think that's embarrassing. Sure, it is. I mean, but so is everything else I've done. But I didn't realize that the alcohol was not helping that. It was making it worse, obviously. But I had progressed to that point to where I was over there holding it in my hand. And it's just, if you can relate to it, it's life gets almost physically exhausting. You go to take a shower, it takes every ounce of strength you have. You go to clean your house, it's like you've ran a marathon. You don't want to get up. You don't want to wear clean clothes. You don't want to wash clothes. You don't want to fold them. You don't want to wash dishes. You don't want to take a shower. You don't want to clean your car out. You go to work unprepared, And so if you're relating to that, that's people go through similar things. And if we would rely on one another instead of hurting one another, think of the good that we could do. And I work in a line of work where if you mention something like that, they make fun of you or you're weak, which is fine. They can call me weak if they want to call me weak. I don't feel that way anymore. That's the closest I've ever came, and it's not happened since. But I'll tell you what's changed. Easter Sunday this year, I was hungover. Go figure. And I was going to drink that night. But that was the day that the Lord had picked to tell me, this is your last chance. Because the Bible says that the vines that don't produce fruit get cut off and thrown in the fire. And that, he'll put you and your talent up on a shelf. And if you're not, working for him, like, answering your calling, he'll put you up on the shelf. Now, I'd ran for mine, which is being a pastor. I would laugh at you if you would have told me 6.5 months ago that I would be preaching today. So since then, I quit drinking. I haven't drank in 185 days. The longest I have not drank since I was 19 years old. Which, if you're wondering, I'm old. I'm 41. So you do the math. I ain't doing it. But, so I've drank, it's the longest I've been sober. My mental health has cleared up a little bit to the point where I don't have to take as much medicine. And within 6 months, we started an online ministry, a podcast episode, or podcast show. And just a month ago, I opened a church, a physical, in Montcalm, West Virginia. This church had been dilapidated, so to speak, on the outside. For between 10 to 15 years, Mardella would know exactly, but when you walk in that sanctuary, no matter how the outside looked, covered in trees and grass 3 foot high, when you are outside looking at it, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm stepping out of faith. 5 hours before she handed me the keys to that church, I was up on East River Mountain praying. I said, Lord, if you're trying to lead me, I'm not good with subtlety. I can't pick up on it. And 5 hours later, I had the keys to a church. And so the sanctuary was like frozen time. There was nothing wrong with it after all that time. And so, with a little cleaning up, it was ready to go. We started, I think, with like 7 people, or 8. And that was family. And Sunday, we had 31 people. There's nobody in that congregation, or even myself, can say, look what we've done. We've grown our church to 31. We haven't grown anything. God did it. And God's going to continue providing for that church in one way, shape, or form. God will take care of it. And the reason I told you all of this is because I was a drunk. I was violent. I was angry all the time. I wasn't a good friend. I was a garbage husband. And even though I've been faithful to my wife now, I've not always been a good husband. And I'm changing that. And I'm just glad that she had the patience to try to work it out with me. And I accept full responsibility for my actions in the past. Like I said, I was a garbage person. And I didn't know what, and the reason I was so stressed out is I was running from my calling to be a pastor. So, it just created all this stress. And, I guess I'm telling y'all all this to know that you might have known me in school or when I worked at the PD the first time or at the prison or since I've been back to the PD. And you know how bad I was. Some of you from the older me, like when I worked at the PD the first time, really know how bad I was. And it's not something I laugh at like I'm proud of. I'm completely ashamed of myself. I have wasted so much time that I could have dedicated to being a better man, and a better husband, a better father, better friend, better policeman. But I'm just glad now that I'm finally doing what the Lord has me to do. I'm not shy about my faith. I'm not shy to say, the name Jesus Christ out loud. A lot of people, they don't care to say God out loud, but for whatever reason, when they say Jesus, they whisper it. I don't care what people think of me. And the reason that I'm telling you how bad I was is you have to be aware, or you have to know how bad I was, so that you can know what God pulled me from. And the more I say it out loud, the more I'm reminded of the unconditional love that God has and how He protected me from myself when I was going to hurt myself. And if you're struggling with depression and anxiety, I've said it numerous times, and I'm going to keep saying it. You are allowed to feel how you feel. You're not weak. It doesn't make you any less of a man or woman. Admitting it is strong, and it takes a lot of courage. And it takes a lot of courage to keep fighting if you're struggling with that intrusive thought of doing something like that. It takes courage to keep fighting like you have. And just always remember, through God, all things are possible. If He be for you, nobody can be against you, and that includes yourself. I love all y'all. I hope you made it through the entire 23 minutes without going to sleep. And if you didn't, I'm glad I could help. Love in Christ.